Alright, hi. Welcome to today's reading, Part 215, CFR 49, Code Federal Regulations 215, Part 215, Railroad Freight Car Safety Standards, Subpart A, Scope, Part, Application Definition, Prohibited Acts, Movement of Defective Cars or Repairs, Designated Inspector, Pre-Departure Inspection, Periodic Inspection, Subpart B, Freight Car Components, Defective Wheels, Defective Axles, Defective Plane Bearing, Box Journal, a general defective plane bearing jock journal, lubrication systems, defective plane bearing wedge, defective rolling bearing, defective roller bearing adapter, defective freight car truck, car bodies, defective car body, draft system, defective couplers, defective uncoupling device, defective draft arrangement, defective cushioning device, subpart C, restricted equipment, scope, restricted area, restricted cars, subpart D, stenciling, general stenciling of restricted cars, stenciling of maintenance of way equipment, Appendix A, Part 215, Part 215, Railroad Freight Car Components, Part 215, Schedule of Civil Penalties, Part C, Part 215, FRA Freight Car Standards, Defective Code, and Appendix Part 215, Pre-Departure Inspection Procedure. Alright, Subpart A, General. This part prescribes minimum federal safety standards for railroad freight cars. Application. Except for the provided in the paragraph B and C of this section, this applies to each of the railroad freight cars in service the standard gauge of the track of railroad to any other standard gauge track while other is being operated by the other ways under control of the railroad. Section 215, 215, 303 of this part does not apply to any of the car owned by Canada and Mexico Railroad having a Canadian-Mexican report marking or car number. This part does not apply to the railroad freight car that is operated solely on the track inside of the industrial, other non-industrial, and non-railroad installations used exclusively in the dedicated service defined in Statute 215.5d of this part, with maintenance for the way equipment, including the self-propelled maintenance for the equipment. If this equipment is not used by the revenue service, it is stenciled in accordance with the Statute 215.305 of this part. Operated in operating in a passenger train, this is inspected, tested, maintained, and operated pursuant to the requirement contained in Part 238 of this chapter. Definitions. Statute 215.5, the definitions used in this part of the break means a fracture resulting in the complete separation of the parts. Crack means of the fractured without completing the separation into parts except with the casting and the shrinkage of the cracks and or hot tears that do not significantly diminish the strength of the member are not considered to be cracked. Railroad freight cars means for the car designed to carry the freight or railroad personnel by railroad includes boxcar, refrigerator car, ventilator car, stock car, gondola car, hopper car, flat car, special car, caboose car, tanker car, yard car. 2. D. Dedicated service means for the exclusion of assignment of the cars to transport with freight between the specified points and under the following conditions. These cars are operated 1. Primarily on the track that is inside the industrial or non-railroad installation. 2. The other on occasional over the track of the railroad. 2. The cars are not operated 1. At the speeds are more than 50 miles per hour. 2. Over the track of the railroad. A. That as for more than 30 miles in one direction. B. On road trip more than 60 miles. 3. The change are not freely interchanged among railroads. 4. The words detected services are stenciled or otherwise displayed in clearly legible letters on each of the car. The car has been examined and found safe to operate the dedicated service. 6. The railroad must 1. Notify the FRA in writing of the cars to be operated in dedicated service. 2. Identify the notice. A. The railroad affected. B. The number of the type of the cars involved. C. The commodities being carried. D. The territorial speed limits within the cars will be operated. 3. File the notice required for the paragraph not less than 30 days before the cars are operated in dedicated service. E. In the service of when used for the connection with the railroad freight car means that the railroad freight car can subject to the part of unless the car has the bad order, the home shop of the repairs, or tag car contain and prescribed information attached to each of the car is being handled in accordance with the statute 215.9 of this part. If it is in the repair shop of the repair track, is in the storage track of is empty, have been delivered and interchanged, must not have been accepted in the receiving carrier. F. Railroad means all forms of non-highway ground transportation that runs on rails, electromagnetic guideways, including the communicator and other short-haul rail passenger service in the metropolitan suburban area. 2. The high-speed ground transportation system that connects metropolitan areas without regard to whether they use the new technologies not associated with the traditional railroad, such as terms do not include the rapid transit operation, which are urban area but non-connected with the general railroad system of the transportation. G. State inspector means the inspector who participating in investigating certain activities for the under the section 205 5 Federal Railroad Safety Act of 1970, Title 45 U.S. Standard Code 435. Prohibited acts. Any person in any type of the covered under Title 1 U.S. Standard Code 1, including not limited to the following: railroad manager, supervisor, official, other employee, agent of the railroad, any owner of the manufacturer, leaser, or lessor of the railroad equipment, track, or the facility, independent track of the contract providing the goods or service of the railroad, an employee or each such owner of the manufacturer, leaser, or lessor, independent, dependent contractor who violates any requirements of this part. The cause of the violation of any such requirement is subject to civil penalty of at least $650, not more than $25,000 in violation, except for the penalties may be assessed against individuals only for the willful violation, where a grossly negligent violation or pattern of the repeated violations has created an imminent hazard of death or injury to the person, has caused death or injury. A penalty not exceeding $105,000 per violation may be assessed. Each day a violation continues shall constitute a separate offense, such as see Appendix B of this part for statement of agency civil penalty policy. Statute 215.9, movement of defective cars from the repair. Railroad freight car which have the component describing the defective in this part may be removed from another location to repair only after the railroad has complied with the following: a person designated under Statute 215.11 for the shall determine that it is safe to move the car in the maximum speed of the other than restriction necessary to safety conducting the movement. The person is charged with the training in which the car is to be moved. This shall be notified of the writing and inform all of the crew members of the presence of the defective car on the maximum speed of the restrictions determined under paragraph A12 of this section. A copy of the tagging car described in section A3 of this section may be used to provide with the notification required in paragraph A21 of this section. 3. A tag or card bearing the word "bad order" or "home shop" or "repair shop" for repairs containing the following information shall be securely attached to each of the side of the car: the reporting mark of the car number, the name of the inspection railroad, the inspecting railroad, the inspection location, the date, the nature of each of the defect, the movement of the restrictions. 6. The designation of the shopping, the repair, the signature for the person designated under Statute 215.11b1. The tag of the card required for the paragraph A3 of this section may only be removed from the card for this person designated under Statute 215.11 of this part. A record, a copy of each of the tag of the card attached for the removed of the card may be retained for 90 days. Upon the request shall be made available within 15 calendar days for the inspection of the FRA and state inspectors. Each tag and card removed from the car shall contain a notification stating the date and location reason for the removal of the signature of the person who removed it from the car, the record-keeping requirements that have been approved by the Office of Management and Budget in accordance with the Federal Reports of Act of 1942. The movements of the freight car under paragraph A of the section may be made only purpose of effecting the repairs. The effect of the empty is not to be placed on loading. If the car is loaded, it may not be placed on for unloading unless unloading is consistent with the determination made with the restriction imposed with the paragraph A1 of the section. 1. The car consigned with the designation on the line of the haul may between the haul and between the point where the car is being found defective and the point where the repairs are made. The unloading necessary for safe repair of the car. Nothing in the section authorizes the movement of the freight car subject to special notice of the repairs and movement is made with accordance with the restriction contained in the special notice. 215.11 Designated inspector. Each railroad operates with the railroad freight car with the parts for the applied with the shall designate the persons qualified with the inspector railroad freight cars for the compliance with this part make the determination required in statute 215.9. Each person designated under the section demonstrated with the railroad knowledge and ability to inspect the railroad freight car with compliance with the requirements for this part to make the determination required in statute 215.9. Which of the respective designations under the section each of the railroads shall maintain the written records. 1. Each designation in effect. 2. The basis for each of the designation. 215.13 pre-departure inspection. Each location for the freight car is placed with the train. The freight car shall be inspected before the train departs. The inspection may be made before and after the car is placed in the train. The location within the inspector designated under statute 215.11 on the duty purpose of inspection freight car with the inspection required for the paragraphs A of this section shall be made with the inspector to determine whether the car is in compliance with this part. And location when the person is designated under statute 215.11 not duty for the purpose of the inspecting freight cars inspection required with the paragraph A shall as a minimum be made with the conditions set forth in Appendix D of this part. Performance of the inspection prescribed in the section does not relieve the railroad of its liability under statute 215.7 for the failure to comply with any of the provisions of the part. 215.15 Periodic Inspection. After June 30th, 1980, the railroad may not place a continuing service of a freight car that has not received initial periodic inspection in accordance with the Title 49 CFR 215.25 as an effective October 6, 1976, Title 41, Federal Register 4044, unless the car is high utilization built and reconditioned after December 31st, 1977. The car is not high utilization car built with reconditioned after December 31st, 1971. A freight car that has received an initial periodic inspection, paragraph A with the section shall be sensible to indicate the accordance with the Title 49 CFR 215.11, Appendix C of this part with the effect of the October 6, 1976, Title 41 Federal Register 44044, and stenciling needed not to be retained for the car after June 30th, 1981, using the section high utilization car means for the car. Specifically equipped with the car of the truck, automobiles, container trailers, removable trailer of the body with the transportation of the freight car, assigned with the train with the operates the continuous round trip of the cycle between the same 2 points. Subpart B, freight car components. Subpart 215.101, scope. The subpart contains the safety requirements prohibiting the railroad from placing and continuing a service of freight that has certain defective components. Suspension wheel system. 215.103, the defective wheel. The railroad may not place the continuing surface of the car. The wheel flange of the car is worn in the thickness of 7/8 of an inch or less. The point of 3/8 of an inch above the tread of the wheel. The height of the wheel flange of the car, the tread of the top of the flange is 1 1/2 inches or more. The thickness of the rim of the wheel on the car is 1/16 of an inch or less. The wheel rim of the flange of the plate and the hub of the area with the crack or break. A wheel of the car that has been chipped, the gouge of the flange that is 1 1/2 inches length and 1/2 inch width or more. A wheel on a car that has a slid flat shelled spots that is more than 2.5 inches in length, or 2 adjoining flat shelled spots, each of which is more than 2 inches in length. The wheel on the car shall be in evidence of being loose, such as oil seepage on the back of the hub and the back plate. The wheel on the cover of the car shows the sign of the having been overheated, evidence of reddish to brown discolorization to a substantially equal the extent of the both of the front and the back of the face of the rim that extends over the either face with more than 4 inches in the plate area measured from the inner edge of the front of the back face of the rim. A wheel of the car has been welding unless the car is being moved from the restricted repair according to Statute 215.9 of this part. 215.105 defective axle. Railroad may not place the continuing surface of the car of the any axle of the car that has cracked or broken an axle for the car that has gouged and surface in it between the wheels and seats more than 1/8 of an inch of the depth, and the axle of the car that used in conjunction with the plane bearing has an end collar that is broken and cracked. A journal on the car showing the evidence for the overheating and evidence of the pronounced blue or black discoloration in the surface of the planing bearing. A journal axle of the fillet of the axle has 1 a ridge, depression, circumferential score, corrugation, scratch, continuous streak, pitting, rust, or etching. Section 215.107, the defective plane bearing box. General. Railroad may not place the continuing surface of the car if the car has a plane bearing box that does not contain visible free oil. The plane bearing box lid that is missing, broken, or open except for the receivable servicing. Plane bearing box containing foreign materials such as dirt, sand, and coal dust, and the reasonably with the expected damage to the bearing or having detrimental effect with the lubricating with the journal of the bearings. 215.109, defective plane bearing box. Journal lubrication system. Railroad may not place the continuous surface of the car with the car planing with the bearing box of the lubricating pad has the tear extending to the half of the length of the width of the pad. More show evidence for the having been scorched, burned, or glazed, continually decaying, deteriorated fabric impaired for the proper lubrication of the pad has an exposed center core, except for the design metal parts containing the journal, and is or missing non-contacting with the journal. Defective plane bearing. A railroad may not place any continuing surface of the car. The car has a plane bearing the missing of the crack or broken on which the bearing liner is loose and has broken out of the piece that is shown the signs of having been overtaken, evidence of smelted babbitt, smoke from the hot oil, journal service damage. 215.113, defective plane bearing wedge. The railroad may not place in the continuing surface of the car a plane bearing wedge that the car is missing, cracked, broken, or not located in the desired position. 215.1115, defective roller bearing. A railroad may not place in continuous surface of a railroad car that has a roller bearing that shows the signs that having been overheated, evidence of discolorization, other than telltale signs of overheating of the damage of the seal of the distortion of any bearing component of the rolling bearing with a loose and missing cap screw, broken, missing, and improperly applied with a cap screw lock, or a roller bearing which is sealed that is loose, damaged, or permits leakage. The lubrication is clearly formed. The droplets B1. The railroad may not continue in the surface of the car that has a roller bearing whose trucks were involved in derailment unless the bearing has been inspected and tested by visual examination to determine whether it shows the sign of damage, and spinning freely in the wheel set, manually rotating rotating the bearing to determine whether the bearing makes an unusual noise. The roller bearing should be disassembled from the axle, inspected internally. 1. If it shows external signs of damage. 2. It makes unusual noise with the wheel set so spun free with the bearings and manually rotated. 3. If the truck was involved with the derailment, if the speed is more than 10 miles per hour. If the truck was dragged on the ground for more than 200 feet, if the defective roller bearing shall be repaired or replaced with the car and placed in that back in service. 215.117 defective roller bearing adapter. The railroad may not place in continuous service the car with the car that has a rolling bearing adapter that is cracked or broken or not in design position worn of the crown, but the adapter except the frame bears on the relief portion of the adapter shown in the figure below. See figure 1. 215.119 defective freight car truck with the railroad may not place in continuous service the car with the car that has a side frame bolster that is broken, has a crack of 1/4 inch and more in transverse direction of the tension member. B. Track equipped with a snubbing device and effective as evidenced by 1. Snubbing friction element worn behind the wear indicator. 2. The snub wearing plate loose with the missing except by design worn through a broken missing snubber activating spring or snubber unit having broken in case the hydraulic unit is broken, leaking clearly formed droplets in oil and other fluid. A side bearing that is any of the following conditions: part of the side bearing assembled with the missing broken the bearing at one end of the car on both sides in contact with the body bolster except the design. 3. The bearings on one end of the cab are of the total clearance of the body bolster more than 3/4 of an inch, or a diagonal opposite end of the opposite side of the car. The bearings have total clearance from the body bolster from more than 3/4 of an inch for the inch. Truck springs that do not maintain travel load. They compress solidly more than one or outer springs, or which is broken, missing in any of the spring cluster interference between the truck and the bolster center plate, and that prevents the proper truck rotation. Brake beam shelf support warning excessively that it does not support the brake beam. Figure 1 shows the relief portion of the car bodies. 215.121 defective car body. The railroad may not place in the continuous surface of the car if the portion of the car body truck other improvements except when the wheels has less than 2.5 inches clearance from the top of the rail. The car center is broken, cracked more than 3 inches, permanently bent with buckled with more than 2.5 inches in a 6-foot length, and the car has a coupler and carrier that is broken, missing, not resilient for the coupler heads type of the F head. After December 1st, 1983, the car is boxcar. The side of the doors are not equipped with the operative hanger, the equivalent to prevent the doors from becoming disengaged. The car has the center plate that is not properly secured. Any portion of the missing that is broken. This has 2 or more cracks through the cross-section thickness at the edge of the plate, extending through the portion of the plate obstructed from the view of the truck in its place, or the car has broken inside sill cross barriers and body barriers. Drafting system 215.123 defective couplers. A railroad may not place and continue to service the car if the car is equipped with a coupler shank and the alignment to the extent of the coupler will not couple automatically with the adjacent car. The car has a coupler that has a crack in a highly stretched junction area of the shank and is head shown in figure 2 below figure 2. See figure 2. The car has been coupler knuckles broken, cracked on the inside of the bowling of the face of the knuckle. The car has a knuckle pin, knuckle thrower that is missing. Inoperative of the car has a coupler retainer pin lock that is. Figure 2 shows your coupler with the container 4 inch by 4 inch, figure 3 inch by 3 inches. Alright, missing broken. The car has a coupler with any of the following conditions. Lock lift, inner-operative of the coupler assembly does not have the anti-creep protection to prevent unintentional interlocking with the coupler lock, or the coupler lock is missing, inoperative, bent, or the cracker broken. 215.125 defective uncoupling devices. Railroad may not place and continue service with the car that the car's uncoupling device without sufficient vertical lateral clearance to prevent following on the curves and unintentional uncouplings. 215.127 defective draft arrangement. The railroad may not place and continue in service for the car if the car has the draft gear that is inoperative. The car has a broken yoke, the end of the cushioning unit, and leaking clearly from the droplets. Inoperative vertical coupler pin retainer plate is missing except that the design 2 has a missing fastener, and the car has a draft key or a draft key retainer that is inoperative, missing. The car has a missing or broken follower plate. 215.9 215.129. Defective cushioning devices. The railroad may not place the continuous surface of the car of the cushion device that is broken, inoperative, missing on part, unless the siding components have been effectively immobilized. Subpart C, restricted equipment. Scope. The subpart contains requirements restricting the use of certain railroad freight cars. Restricted car. The section restricts the operating of any railroad freight car that is more than 50 years old, more measured for the day of the original construction, equipped with any design type of the component listed in Appendix A of this part, equipped with the Duria underframe of construction from April 1st, 1950, except for the caboose with the operated with the last car on the train. A railroad may not place and continue to service the railroad freight car with described in paragraph A of the sections, except under the conditions approved by the Federal Railroad Administration. C. The railroad may petition the administrator to continue to service the car with the described in paragraph A of the section. Each petition shall be submitted not less than 90 days before the car is operated to be submitted. State is described in the following: 1. The name of the principal business address for the petition. Railroad. 2. The name of the address for the entity controlled for the operation maintenance of the car involved. 3. The number, the type of the capacity reporting marks, the car number of the car, the condition, the status for the measure for the day of the original construction. 4. The design of the type of the component, other items of the car to be restricted, the maximum load of the car's carrier, the maximum speed over which the car was operated. Each for the car may be examined, found to be safe, operated under the conditions set forth in the petition. And 8. The territorial. Yeah?
Hey, it's 1:35. If you're doing my lunch, you got to get to work.
Alright, I'll be in a minute. The territorial limits within the cars to be operated with the name of each of the railroad received the cars and interchange. Alright. I'm going to read up to the appendix, and I'm going to break a break. So Part D, stenciling. The railroad private owner car with the reporting mark of the car number, the bill of the date of the stencil, otherwise display clearly legible letters numbered not less than 7 inches high, except for those built with the date shall not be less than 1 inch high on each side of each of the freight car body. In the case of the tank of the car, any location that is visible to the person while walking at a track level beside the car. 215.303, stencil. Restricted cars. Each of the restricted railroad freight cars described in statute 215.205A, but this part shall be stenciled and marked in clear legible letters. According to the paragraph B and C of the section, letter R shall be placed immediately below onto the provided of the car number. The same color is reporting the color. The same side of the reporting mark. The following terms are to an extent need to be completely indicate the base of the restricted operation of the car shall be replaced in the car following the symbol R in the letters not less than 1 inch high. Age, coupler, draft, bearings, truck, underframe, wheels, yoke. 215.305, stenciling and maintenance of the way equipment, maintenance of equipment, including self-propelled maintenance of the equipment described in statute 215.3C3 shall be stenciled or marked in clearly legible letters in accordance with the paragraph B of the section. The letters M-U-W must be at least 2 inches higher or placed on each side of the car. In Appendix A, Part 215, railroad freight car components. We'll come back to this.